Well, good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for joining us for the weekly call. My name's Denny, and today is Saturday, July 20th, 2019, and it's kind of hard to believe we're just about a month past summer solstice, but indeed, summer is really moving right along. On the call today are the boys, Jim Sinclair, Bill Holter, and the famous Dave, and that's not the barbecue Dave, this is our famous Dave, and they are ready to weigh in on what's going on in the world. Listen, we've been getting a lot of emails from listeners, and Bill sent me this one that really made me chuckle. Listener Jim took me to task in an email to Bill when he wrote, P.S. Do you think you could get Denny to listen better to the answers you, Jim, and Dave give and ask better follow-up questions? And then Jim goes on to whack at me a little bit more and says, at present, it mostly seems that Bill is the only one on the team capable of asking good follow-up questions of Jim. And those are some of the best bits of information that come out. All right. Listener Jim, you sound like my wife, and I'll try to do better. Now, in just a bit, we're going to be getting into some more of the listener questions that were sent in to Bill. But right out of the gate, I'm going to try to get a perspective from the boys on Facebook's cryptocurrency called Global Coin. Dave, I'm starting with you, and I'm not a fan of cryptos yet and probably never will be, but this one really bothers me. I'm not a psychologist, but I figure the one thing that might terrify the central banks and the banking community itself would be cryptocurrencies, because the money would be pulled from the banks and put into those digital currencies. Dave, I don't even have a Facebook account because I not only don't trust them, I think they're evil. If Facebook can ban posts that they don't like, could they not also ban you from transactions? Dave, nothing about this has given me warm and fuzzies. I would really appreciate your perspective on not just this global coin, but the other cryptos. What do you think?
Okay, let's start with Facebook. I've never been on it. I've never posted. I've never even looked at it. And I can tell you why and what it is. And to start with, what I'd have to tell people, and they could do their own research on this, is go look up a program called LifeLock. It was started by DARPA, Defense Advanced Research Project. Well, LifeLock was the predecessor to Facebook. Facebook, in my opinion, is a giant facial recognition data collection operation run for the benefit of the United States government. I believe this is a trial balloon with the cryptocurrency, because Facebook can't really roll out its own cryptocurrency because, as you said, there's too many people who just don't participate in Facebook. So that being said, I would say along the lines of what Jim has talked about, if and when the reset occurs, the central banks could use cryptocurrencies amongst themselves, because the banking establishment is similar to the military-industrial complex. It's interwoven. You can't get it out of the fabric of society. So they aren't going to go away, and they're not going to allow Zuckerberg or Facebook to take away what is a huge portion of the world's pie. So, again, I believe this is just it's a sideshow for the public. They've got these big hearings going. Because if it was, again, for real, all these other cryptocurrencies would have went to zero this week based on what Treasury said and based on what Congress said. And they should have went to zero this week. And as I emailed you one day, Denny and Bill, you're looking at Bitcoin move $1,250 in the course of a day. So if I did a transaction sometime during the day based on what the value of the cryptocurrency was, I mean, how do you hedge that? I mean, I don't see it ever being practical other than, as Jim said, from central bank to central bank. We, the peasants, are still going to have our own little banking industry that they are going to continue to suck the life out of us on. That's my opinion.
David, they can take every cryptocurrency apart by one simple act, and that is to turn the securities regulators loose on them. And securities regulations have gone absolutely wild. They've destroyed the industry. There is no retail anymore. They seem to have wanted to whack the retail right out of the equation and leave it with computers and major funds and the Swiss Federal Reserve and the through Belgium and through the Caymans. An application of a third of what the security dealers have to go through on a daily basis would make cryptocurrency a non-functional piece of worthless paper, while the Fed could run with it, make it seriously secret, and make it part and parcel of a reset, which I think they'll do. You're watching an experiment. Up the flag to see who salutes.
Bill, I'm going to ask you to follow up on that. One of the things I can't get my arms around is if somebody, there may be 200 different cryptocurrencies. What is to prevent anybody from cooking the books? They say that they're going to take their source code and make it available, but you cannot duplicate gold and silver. You cannot duplicate diamonds. You cannot duplicate certain hard real estate. But cryptocurrency, for me to trade in everything in my bank account to go to a crypto, this just seems like lunacy, Bill. It doesn't make sense to me, Bill.
Well, you're describing one of the big pros of the crypto bulls is the blockchain itself. It is a perfect accounting system. So what you're thinking is a negative. It is a perfect accounting system. So, I don't view that as a negative. What I don't see is there being anything real backing it. And, of course, the crypto bulls will say that the energy expended to create a Bitcoin or an Ethereum or whatever, that energy expended, that is the value. But in the end, if you compare it to silver and gold, you have an actual product, a real product that you can hold in your hand.
Jim, we got an email from a listener by the name of Glenn, and he had a lot of questions about the resets. Now, there's two different resets. I want to concentrate on the first one because that seemed to be where Jim was wanting some perspective from you. His first question is, what are the signs that the first reset has begun? And then the second question following right up is, are central banks the focal point of the reset? And if not, not only how do we know when it's begun, where's it going to begin? Are the banks involved? And if not, who's involved? How do we recognize this first reset?
What is the central, what Glenn, is it? What
Glenn.
Is the central point that the reset addresses? Central point the reset addresses is the weakness or lack of viability in the currency brought about by overmuch debt and the dollar having lost its three systems for being backed, if you will. Okay, gold, oil. It's just it is basically not there. Confidence. So there are three arguable standards that the dollar has looked at in order to gain its acceptance as international currency. And it became a currency prior to 72, reserve currency, and it stayed a reserve currency because, look, they got it, okay? It's sort of like reserved by default. So the main target for the reset is the value of the dollar in international markets. And the value of the dollar in international markets will be revealed in time, I believe, by taking your Fibonacci and rather than standing at vertical, lay it down horizontal. That's time rather than price, and of course price as well. So you're going to use one of the one of the oldest technical and analytical tools that exist to take a look at both time and price. Then you're going to go out and you're going to buy yourself a set of Bezeler curves, B-E-Z-L-E-R, Bezeler curves. And what a Bezeler curve is an algebraic formula expressed by a line. What a Bezeler curve is momentum expressed by a line. What computers are that have been raining hell on everybody are machines that measure momentum based on the thesis of the Bezeler curve. So you're going to get in your hands a couple of tools. You're going to go onto the web or wherever or to a design store, and you're going to get yourself the Bezeler curves and a full set, and you're going to get yourself Fibonacci tool, which you can lay down or stand up, and you're going to focus in on the dollar like never before. And the Bezeler curve is going to become your trend line. Now, it's most meaningful in a bull market, but it has application in a bear market. And you can see where the momentum to hold the dollar in this trading range falls apart. Now you've got your timing for a reset. Because the nature of a banking system is never to step ahead of a problem, but to react to a problem. They would rather hope there's never a necessity to even have a first reset, and this all would go away by some form of magic. But it's not. It's not because of Bill Holter's calculations on debt versus ability to pay. Absolutely accurate, central to our argument. So the first reset will be something cooked up by central banks. And anything cooked up by central banks will have as its major ingredient sustain the central bank. And therein enters the cryptocurrency, which will attempt to replace the U.S. Treasury bill. Because what is a U.S. Treasury bill? It's nothing. What's a cryptocurrency? Not much more. So you can see the con, if you will, or the long-term lesson in having confidence in nothing. The debt of a bankrupt is nothing. So anyone who argues that you can't have a federal crypto with a nice federal name, U.S. security-backed cryptocurrency, make up anything you want, but make sure you get full faith and guarantee of the United States of America and every other government you can find. And for some period of time, especially if, as we move into the elections in 2020, this tremendous economy, it's advertised like it's never happened before in the history of man, turns out to be the absolute ultimate manufactured psych-up, and it doesn't make it through to the election, you can expect it to happen around that time. Jim, if it makes it through to the election, it will start coming apart when it becomes apparent that Europe and Asia and Africa and China are not enjoying the same environment as we hear on MSNBC. every 5 minutes. The second reset will be a market creation. That will be the real reset in which gold acts. And the trigger to that will be in your figures for the demand and availability and storage of gold and silver. And it becomes ever more important that, a fellow like Organ be listened to as you pass through the first reset to see for the second. Because that's the point at which exchanges will not make delivery. That's the point at which the two major market makers in gold will be China and Russia. And that's going to be, in the poker sense, calling the hand. That's going to be laying your cards on the table and seeing what the other man has. And if he doesn't come up with all that gold he's supposed to have, then the system belongs to China and to Russia.
Jim, let's focus on that. Let's focus on that timeline just a little bit. We've got the first reset that possibly with cryptocurrencies it's going to be a banking situation. There'll be it probably won't be a political affair or any legislation. Then you've got the second one. I think that if I reading into all of Glenn's input to Bill that he forwarded on to me, the question is, what is the timeline then between the first reset and second reset where we're going to see bankruptcies or debt forgiveness or real serious dollar devaluations? Let's start with the bankruptcy. Where will the bankruptcy
maximum
be?
18 months, fitting into the 5-year formula I've given you, starting in the middle of June of this year. It's coming quick, guys. Okay, it is coming quick because the market will just will smell it, not like it, not have it. Everybody will go out to protect themselves. To heck with the other man, beggar the other fellow, going out to protect himself with no mind of what it means to do that, resulting in a runaway market in both silver and gold, because there isn't any, and it is a fraud, and it will be an obvious fraud that can't be denied, and that event focuses in on delivery. First event, focuses in on dollar. Second event focuses in on delivery. So if you make it in one piece through the first event, you better not wait around for the 17 months for the next one. This idea of trying to be a market timer in a crisis is just all wrong, Denny, all wrong. And I think our listeners should know by now that we're not talking to them every week to help them, spin a trading position. We want them to get to the other side of this in one piece so there will be something to put back together again. And if our listeners don't, who will? Think about that. The answer is no one. So the second reset will take place within the time schedule given, because after the second reset there will be a yawn. I mean, the markets will yawn after that. They've had enough. Everything goes sideways for a short period of time, and the gold will be fixed not by some declaration, not by some law. It will be fixed by a different kind of law of economics. Because if you have two of the biggest traders in the world say the same thing, bid north for 50, what do you want to do? Bid north for 50, what do you want to do? Believe me, gold is fixed at 50,000. So that's my take and answer to Glenn's question.
Yeah, Bill, I heard you step in. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say part of his question was, how will we know that the first reset's happening? It's already happening. First off, you can see gold and silver are beginning. Gold has broken out. Silver was up 10% this week in 5 trading days. That's obviously not normal. And this is happening at a time when the world's central banks are saying we're going to ease. It's at a time when the Federal Reserve is saying we're going to ease 25 basis points, we're going to ease 50 basis points. The point is, they're saying in one breath, this is the greatest economy the U.S. has ever had, and in the other breath saying, but we're going to ease. That tells you their back's up against the wall. It tells you they're being forced to do something. That is, the reset is happening.
So, Bill,
I say silver and gold scream that very loudly, especially silver this week, Bill.
Bill, with your experience as a broker, you know that people make emotional decisions about trades, and then they try to back them up with logic. But most of the trading decisions, in my experience, have always been done with emotion. So,
always.
You saw all the questions we got this week about mortgages and debt in general. I want you to go slow, and I want you to help listeners understand the real issues. We got this one follow-up question from Murray. He says, my mortgage, I got a contract price of $200,000. I have already paid off prior to reset day, which we're already into reset now. I've paid off $100,000. On reset day, then I have a mortgage outstanding to pay off in dollar value, but on reset day arrival, they're going to price it in gold. I want you to go slow and give your best wisdom to Murray about, as far as your contract mortgage gold value changes as the price of gold changes in subsequent future periods, whatever, you just need to be the older brother to Murray and say, Murray, this is what you need to be doing. So do your best.
Okay. If you go back and look at what happened in Weimar, Germany, the contracts, the mortgages were based in marks. And when that currency failed, the government legislated that the contracts, and this was to save the banks. It was for no other reason other than to save the banks from basically becoming worthless. It allowed the banks to rewrite the mortgages in grams of gold at the outset, at gold priced at the outset of your mortgage. So rather than having a mark mortgage, you ultimately had a gold mortgage. And they did that because gold didn't devalue and the marks devalued in the hyperinflation to virtually zero. Now, in today's world, so he's paid off half of his mortgage already. He's only got 100 left. And what I've tried to tell people is there's going to be a window in time, and that window has cracked open. In other words, you've seen gold break through 1,400. It broke over the 1,350 early yesterday. Gold was $100 higher. So gold is breaking out. Silver all of a sudden has broken to the upside. We had a 10% move in a week's time. The window that I'm talking about is, so let's say 3 months from now, you see gold at 1,700, 1,800, or even through 2,000. At that point, it probably would be wise, if you have enough gold right now to pay your mortgage off, with that window opening wider, pay your mortgage off. Sell your gold or silver or whatever that you've put to the side versus my entire life, virtually every home that I've owned with a mortgage, I always had enough gold and always had enough silver that I could liquidate the gold or liquidate the silver and pay my mortgage off. That's my mindset. That's the way I've always worked. You can't wait until the window opens all the way, because when the window opens all the way and you see gold at doing stupid things like moving $300-$500 a day, $1,000 a day, the government's going to come in and they're going to rewrite mortgages to try to save the banking system. And guess what? Your window's shut. Because now you're using gold in current terms that's $3,000 an ounce, but your mortgage is rewritten back to $1,100 an ounce.
So if I hear what you're saying, you can dance on the nose of the alligator, but sooner or later
he's going to open his mouth and bite you and eat you.
He's going to bite you. Yeah.
Yep.
Dave, we're going to continue on with the listener questions. Listener Jim, the one that told me I didn't ask good follow-up questions, he had a good one, and he said, it's my understanding that real estate valuations are likely to fall radically in terms of gold, and possibly even in nominal terms, due in large part to the failure or the unavailability of credit. In other words, real estate's going down because nobody can borrow money to buy real estate. And listener Jim says he's seen figures of 80 to 95% devaluations in past similar events. So his question is I've often wondered if it would be best to not pay off my mortgage balance, particularly if no opportune window that, like what Bill has just talked about, and that gold started to rise in price, but instead let them take my house, I don't care, if it came to that, and then plan to buy a different property after the second reset that Jim is talking about. That sort of seems rather logical to me, Dave, that you've got a choice here. You can let them foreclose on your house, let them have your house, and then you take your physical and try to sit pretty to buy another one. Dave, you're a businessman. Yeah, Dave, you're a businessman. What do you think?
It's a risky. Yes, it's definitely one you could take. We're in a situation where we don't know how this is going to come out the other end, especially when it comes to real estate. So right now, to tie up any money in real estate other than if it's your home. You need to survive. Well, and again, what's a home? A home, I don't have a home per se. I have a fort. And when I say a fort,
you got a bunker.
I made my house into a fort, for lack of a better word. So, no, I wouldn't want to part with mine. But if you're just for lack of a better word, a person living in a house, making a mortgage payment, it really isn't yours to begin with. It's the banks and it's the towns and the states and the cities, because they're all taxing you and you're giving them all a vig to live there. So, what he's talking about, if you were to be very calculated, other than the stigma from having to declare bankruptcy and giving back your house, and also the risk that they change the rules and they get to continue to chase you down and send you to debtor prison, what he's talking about is a calculated. It is something to think about, again, because, if you could stick it to the bank, hey, live in $1 million house and give it back to them, because I'm in the camp that, yes, real estate values are probably going to come completely unglued because there'll be no bid. Because as we're talking about these resets occurring, you're going to just have uncertainty. And when you have uncertainty, you don't have a strong housing market. And if you have people going bankrupt left and right, there will be no bids for a lot of houses. So,
well, Dave, there can't be any bids, because when credit dries up, where's the demand going to come from? Where's the demand for any big-ticket item going to come from? Cars, boats, you name it.
Airplanes,
credit cards.
Yeah. Right. Ferraris. I'm $1.5 million Ferrari. Well, good for you. Again, I'm in 100% agreement with you, Bill, which is why the guy writing in, yes, if he was a gambler, that's a gamble you could definitely take and, probably have a chance of pulling it off relatively well.
Dave, while we're on this topic of real estate, there was an article today on Zero Hedge regarding Australian real estate. And I got to say, I was shocked. I had no idea, and I forget which cities they were, but they named a couple cities. One city had an 800, and this is Australian dollars, so it's 0.75 of U.S. dollars. But the median home price is $806,000, and the median home price in the other was over $1 million. I mean, how does anybody afford that? I mean, where
that used to be my maintenance per year when I was slightly out of my mind.
Dave, Dave, I think you've been a commercial landlord. This time bomb is even worse than what I think a lot of people have envisioned. Commercial landlords, they can get sometimes a 3, sometimes a 5-year lease with rewrites and whatever. But imagine being in a situation where the value of your of your dollar, of your rent income coming in is just eroding by 50%, and at the same time your mortgage on a commercial basis could be repriced in grams of gold. Dave, I'm not sure I'd want to be a holder of commercial real estate at all at this point.
Absolutely, 100%. I would not want to be counting on my rent roll to cover me. I've been down this road once before, and when your rent roll dries up, you know what you send the bank? The same thing that your tenant sends you. Nothing. And that results in the bank and you having a disagreement on who owns that property. So, Denny, I'm not a real estate fan at this stage of the current cycle. I've run away from real estate. Other than, if it's your fort, or if it's your, if you have a ton of money and you want a little dream house, great, I can understand that. But no, real estate, especially commercial, because you see what's happening, especially in retail commercial land. I mean, mall owners, strip mall owners, they're getting destroyed. They're absolutely getting destroyed because you're watching a disruption of business. Online retail is crushing your average retail store.
Well, you're watching anchor tenants leave.
Walk away.
Yeah.
Well, Jim, I asked the same question to Bill. This dance of timing, everybody's trying to understand when do you do the swap out of or from or into dollars when it comes to their debt. It's this delicate call. In adding on to what Bill said.
Why play
well,
the
because
game?
everybody thinks they can beat. Everybody thinks they can win in Vegas.
But everybody
Jim.
can't. Okay? I mean, it just doesn't work that way. If it did, everybody listening would be a billionaire. And you have to be practical. Everybody cannot time things well. 95% of people ill-time everything. And the idea that there'll be a month or two for you to think in between could exist, as you well said, but I'm not willing to take that risk at all.
We try really hard.
You should eliminate as much debt as you possibly can eliminate, neither a lender nor a bar or a B. Let's go backwards in time, okay? And let's eliminate debt. And if you want to run up some debt, do it against your American Express card, but not against the thing you're living in.
Yeah, we're not allowed to give financial advice. We can give you financial perspective, but this isn't an investment show.
That's perspective, not advice.
Yeah,
so what I'm saying is,
exactly.
It's the nature of the asset. Don't put your don't put your roof at risk, because I'm going to tell you, your wife will get really angry when they start putting that sign on your door.
And if you cannot afford to pay off your mortgage, do the best you can. A little bit later, we're going to be talking about some basic things.
Whatever you can
a little
do.
bit at a
Knock
time.
It down.
Exactly.
And then build up your gold savings account.
Dave,
let me just jump in on that.
Go ahead.
Because as I mentioned, pretty much my entire adult life, other than my very first house, I've always, in my mind, whatever gold, whatever silver I had, was always versus the roof over my head. It gave me the ability, no matter what happened, it gave me the ability to liquidate and pay the note off. So I do want to say, Jim, this is probably like one point of thousands and thousands that we agree on. That I disagree a little bit because accumulating over, and this is, obviously over 30 years or more, accumulating gold, accumulating silver. At some point, quite a few years ago, I got to the point where I had more gold and more silver than any mortgage I ever took out.
That's a wonderful position to be in.
Well, it's been comforting. It's
yes.
Call it a blood pressure pill, whatever you want to call it. No, you don't want to gamble with the house with the roof over your head, but in the event of a light switch event, I believe that there will be some kind of rumblings, some kind of smell in the air that something's going to happen with mortgages. And if you smell that, then, yeah, go ahead and pay the note down.
Bill, we've given today 3 tools to be used that are as good as any algorithm computer ever invented. I rather hope that our listeners have pencils and pads when we talk, and we give them names of things they've never heard before.
Well, they can certainly listen twice, which I have been doing myself, and I'm the one that's asking questions here. And I go back and listen to it 2 times more, and I always learn more each time I listen, so it's good advice, Jim. Hey, David, we've got to ask you the geopolitical question because we have that much faith in you. And just before a deal was announced with North Korea, there were war rumors, the bombing's going to start off, and then this whole noise of war was surrounding North Korea. We were totally enveloped by it. And then we get a stand down, and it looks like Trump and Kim were talking and moving away from war. Now we're hearing exactly the same thing with Iran. The bluster and the bombacity is everywhere. And I heard yesterday that 500 troops are going to Saudi Arabia, and drones are being shot out of the sky, tankers are being hijacked, dogs and cats, living together. Any chance that this is going to be just like North Korea, and all of a sudden we're going to hear about some grandiose big deal being struck between Iran and the United States, Dave?
Well, let's back up. I don't believe there ever was a deal with North Korea. I believe North Korea came out the winner of this so far. I mean, we tried to intimidate North Korea. It didn't work. If you bluff and your bluff gets called, you basically are standing there with your hands in your pocket. So far, what I've seen, we've gotten absolutely nothing out of North Korea. He has projected himself on the world stage. No other leader from that country has been able to. China has come out and said that they want to work with him. Russia has come out and said they want to work with him. So far, I don't see that we've gotten anything out of that. I think that our bluff got called. Perfectly honest with you. I had heard stories that when that air raid went off in Hawaii, that North Korea really had launched a missile and we had picked it off. Again, that story's so far-fetched that there would have been, by now, so much confirmation that a missile was launched and shot down that it'd be silly. Amateurs would have found that information. Iran is not North Korea, in my opinion. Iran is a highly developed country. It has international trading partners. You can't take that away from them.
China stands behind them.
Bingo. And they are a military power. We got the bluff call. We tried to set them up with the fake ship bombings, with this, with that. I believe Iran has called our bluff also. The United States walked away from the deal. Whether people think that was good or bad, that's just a fact. We walked away from the deal. We thought we could pressure them into regime change. So far, that has not happened. I believe, again, that our bluff has been called. So now to save face, we came up with this, well, I was going to bomb them, but 150 people were going to die, so I called it off. The United States cares about 150 people? We've killed 1 million people in Yemen by giving Saudi Arabia weapons. So, no, I don't think we care about 150 people. I believe that whole thing was a bluff. I don't believe the United States has the cahoons to take this fight because, as I said before, Iran is capable of hitting so many of our allies, specifically Israel, in the moment we attack them. Unless we could completely evaporate the whole country without hurting the surrounding countries, and I don't think we possess that technology. We do have the ability to evaporate the country, but we'd evaporate the whole Middle East if that was to occur. So, no, I think our bluff. Right. I just think our bluff's being called. We're out of options.
Hey, Dave, the odds are really, really high that Iran is already nuclear capable.
They have to be because they're playing a tight wire that could go wrong. So my bet is they're already nuclear.
They possess some type of technology that they feel gives them an edge.
Yes,
again,
some kind of technology.
Yes. I hope that we don't end up in any type of shooting war with Iran, because the Middle East is already a big enough problem. You want to turn it into a real quagmire, that's how you're going to do it. Now, will we come up with a deal? I don't see that's possible, because the neocons who are running this country are in bed with Israel. There's a certain religious core within the Republicans that are very tight with Israel, and I'm trying to be very delicate here, would not step on any toes. But there's a certain core group, and it's also in the military, that believes that the apocalypse has to play out and that it's their job to bring it to fruition. That's the real scary part about this, because, and again, you have Pompeo out there stating Trump was put here by God as president to protect Israel from Iran, and it got no press. If you go and Google that or internet search it, you can see the European papers covered it silly. American papers glossed right over it, like, oh, yeah, don't worry about that.
Yeah. Just look at the word rapture.
Right. And again, no, there's no way. They called our bluff. The only thing we could hope is that smarter minds prevail. Iran turned around and laid it right in the UK's lap. You grabbed our ship, now we got one of yours. Oh, you better give ours back. The UK's working like a bunch of babies. We want our ship back. Well, how about you give me my ship back first, jerk? I mean, this is bizarre.
27 guys.
Yeah, I mean, so no, no, there's no great deal here, in my opinion, coming out of any of this. I think our bluff's getting called yet again. Our bluff around the world is getting called. And Russia and China are sitting back pulling these strings. Oh, my God, America's dancing to our tune here, because you know what?
And thus, a real reason for the dollar to step back.
Well, remember what the first sign is. 3 technical tools attached to the dollar will give you the beginning of the first reset. Will give you all the timing you need.
Okay,
hey,
well,
I don't know what your next question is going to be, but one thing that happened, I believe it was Thursday night, or it may have been Friday. Overnight repo rates exploded.
Yes, that was the next question, boss. I'm looking at this. Gold makes this huge run up.
Question or not, but
yeah, but gold made this huge run up, and then it gets smacked back down, and then you get Kirby coming on USA Watchdog, and he said that they just will not allow gold to break out. Listeners want to know what the boys have to say about this, because to me, the jig's up. It's on. I mean, it's happening.
It is on. The jig is up, and nobody commands the price of gold any longer.
They're affecting it in short bursts, but the fact
of course,
gold's $100
I'm talking the price of gold.
It's been in the last 6 years.
The price of gold, the phase of gold. I don't know where guys get these ideas. Sometimes I think they come out of a bottle of scotch.
But Denny,
Jim, I don't know if you're. Go ahead, Bill.
I was just going to say that's at one point. And it could have been just one institution. It could have been a fat finger, but their overnight repo rates spiked to 1,000%.
Explain to listeners what you're talking about.
Well, overnight repos basically, if you want to call it balancing the books overnight. If you have too much liquidity, you lend it. If you don't have enough liquidity, you borrow it. And for rates to go to 1,000%, it showed that somebody was in desperate need of liquidity.
Mm. Oh, cost of overnight money. Whoops.
Yeah, but that's completely out of control. 1,000%. I mean, you're paying 3% for one night's money. Is what that amounts to.
You're not going to escape economic law. It's still out there. It still exists. It's coming home. Get ready. Be prepared. It's here.
Jim, there were other interesting things that happened this week, and one of our listeners, a fellow by the name of Lincoln, said that he's been watching how silver has gone up on the same day that gold goes down. He said, I've not seen that for 15 years. This is what he's written to Bill. He'd like to know if there's any significance, since there's not really any history of this for 15 years. Are the controllers then focusing only on gold right now and abandoning trying to control silver?
The major manipulators were heavier in silver than gold at the beginning of the last major gold bull market. And when I say the last major gold bull market, I don't mean 1968. I refer more towards 1978. To me, it's a signal that everything we've been speaking about today is in fact correct, and that silver will, at the beginning of the process of reset, be gold on steroids. After that, we'll have to see. But in the beginning, because most of your international investment firms with connecting tunnels to the Federal Reserve have more silver in it than they have gold.
The last few questions were, I want to try to wrap up in 10 to 15 minutes.
Denny, before you go to more questions, I just want to touch back on what we were talking about with China.
Okay.
People need to understand that China is, for lack of better terms, it's a $50 trillion time bomb waiting to blow up. They played the Western game. They played the Western game on steroids as far as debt, the use of debt to do everything, from consumer to corporation to interwoven financial institutions. On the other hand, China has a huge, and I've done the, I've did this several times, just back of the napkin math. They've got over 20,000 tons of gold, and I just want to reiterate that it's my belief they understand the whole game far better than anyone in the West, because they've blown up 20 different paper currencies over thousands of years. So they know the game's going to blow up. And what they did was they used debt to build infrastructure. They have new airports, new roads, new train systems, bridges, you name it, manufacturing. They have modernized, while the West used debt to eat, for lack of better terms.
One of the challenges right now, Bill, and I'd like your reaction to this, is I have a good friend here in Central America, in the central part of the United States, that is in the retail business, and all of a sudden things like patio furniture are not coming from China because of tariffs, they're coming from South Vietnam. Now all of a sudden the Christmas tree business, where they have to order 6 months, 8 months in advance, all of that business has been moved out of China and has gone to, I think he said, Malaysia or Thailand. So the tariffs have done some damage to China. I'm not sure how it's quantified. All I can see is the evidence is all of a sudden manufacturing is going someplace else from China, and that will hurt China in a big way. So that $51 trillion.
Well, they're already slowing down. Their real economy and the number of 6.2% growth is probably completely bogus. It's probably no better than 2%. You have to understand there's two. This is two separate conversations. One is of the real economy, of manufacturing, of trade, and the other is of finance. And as I mentioned, they've built out all this manufacturing capacity. They've built out infrastructure. But from the standpoint of finance, if the global financial system blows up, I think they fully expected that from day one. And that's why they've been amassing gold.
I can't argue with their approach. I am concerned about their economy almost as much as I'm concerned about ours.
Well, they'd be trading through beards now. In other words, they'd get a piece of the action. It isn't as if all the Christmas trees are made in South wherever. They're still Chinese.
Yeah, they're shipped
except China's not making the full piece.
And Jim, again, explain what a beard is to our listeners. A beard is how you hide it.
A beard is when you hire somebody to pretend that they are the true the true source of the transaction.
So the Christmas trees
you
that have
export
made in China,
Christmas trees to XYZ, and XYZ sells the Christmas trees in the international market.
exactly.
Then XYZ returns to you a certain pre-agreed upon amount of money, which you then put in your pocket. You pay the beard a cut for hiding your identity.
All right, Jim, Yes, sir? Go ahead.
Before we jump, I'd just like to add something visual to what Jim was saying about China and their debt versus people eating. 2 credit card holders. They each have $10,000 limit. One guy goes out and buys a skill saw. He buys a cement mixer. He buys all kinds of tools. Second guy goes out, goes to the movies, runs up his dinner bills. They're both in the hole $10,000 at the end of the day. They both end up filing bankruptcy. The guy who ran up to $10,000 in debt ate well for 2 years, saw a lot of great movies, but he's got nothing to show for it. The other guy at the end of 2 years has all these tools that he bought and can go out and make a living with them. Then he got the tools for free.
Exactly.
So when you think about Bill, is that like an analogy that you could wrap your head around?
That's the best analogy I ever heard in my life.
You know, we got fat and happy. You know, we bought a bunch of stupid sneakers that cost too much money. We went to a bunch of movies that stunk to begin with. We ran up debt going to, you know, whatever our favorite eating place is. Now the bills due. You know, the other country, like China, that Bill is saying, they built things. They built high-speed railroads. They built airports. They built apartment buildings. When this reset comes, they're still going to have all those things. And Americans are going to have nothing but a big IOU for eating at their favorite steakhouse or taco house.
And crumbling
potholes in the road.
Well,
all right,
see,
guys.
But, you know.
God, this could go on for an hour and a half to 2 hours.
It could go on for days.
It could.
It become more exciting and more exciting every minute.
All right. Great White Father Jim, Acacia Mining is currently partially owned by Barrick, and this week the two companies finalized a deal that makes Barrick the 100% owner of Acacia, including, of course, all their mines and properties, Bulyanhulu. But what does this we saw consolidation in the United States and in Canada. Now we're seeing consolidation in Africa. What does this consolidation really mean?
1,400 employees of Goldman Sachs transferred to other jobs or back into the job market. 7 managers from Randgold running the whole show. I kind of like the kid with his name, Best Al, the man who runs the show.
Jim, you said
because
Goldman
he
Sachs.
is the best. But don't get in his way or you'll say Al.
Jim, you said Goldman Sachs. You meant Barrick.
And I'm sorry. Well, Barrick was Goldman Sachs. Believe me. Just take a look at it. Take a look at last year's
you're right.
annual statement.
But 1,400 got
correct.
their papers. 1,400 people got their papers.
Yep. And so he brought in his tailored 7 to run the whole show. Now, embedded in that contract is something that hasn't really been popular at all in the gold market, and that is that the reason Acacia rolled over and sold very cheaply what they had, because bear in mind they're in the green belt the same one I am, and the deeper you go, the happier you become. They extracted a special dividend from now Barrick, run by Bestow, formerly Randgold. In my opinion, a reverse takeover. I think it's Randgold, not Barrick, but it's another story. If certain levels of gold are mined and discovered, they get additional funds, which is a form of my idea of why sell gold, but in a different way. I believe that Mr. Bestow has recognized not only that he's the best manager in the business, which everybody knows he is, but also that there is a value to what he's mining, and he's mining money. Therefore, Call it what you wish. Barrick, if you like. Randgold, if you like. The Castle of Estow, if you like. First gold stock to reach 1,000, in my opinion. Because it's already a major who's adopted my approach to the long-term worth of what they've mined. And by the way, 2 weeks ago I had a discussion with them in which we discussed the exact same subject. That if you have a tremendous amount of gold, you're out of your mind if you sell it at a cheap price, because it's there and it's going to be found. All you got to do is keep digging. And next thing you know, he makes a contract that acquiesces to that position. So I think I think that my fingerprints are on that.
I think so too. You were the first one I ever heard about borrow on your bank. You're sitting on your bank. Well, you're going to use. Well, I'm sorry, maybe I'm speaking out of turn, but use your refiner as your bank. And golly, that made perfect sense. And now all of a sudden, Mark Bristow is talking about it. So that's cool.
Why not? Trading gold from the long side in the bull market is so easy. Any of my dogs could do it.
You're going to have
and not doing that.
That's intimidating.
Is giving up an opportunity of a lifetime. So I'm a trader that wants to build a mountain of gold, standing upon it, doing what he does best, trading, and doing something that has never been done before.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Jim. The biggest key to that deal is the special dividend, which would be paid
you're right.
or recognized at a later date when either more gold is mined or more gold is found.
You've perfectly explained it, but what it really is, you get more gold, you give me bonus.
Exactly.
And that's based on the concept that they're mining money. First time ever in this industry has anybody ever made a contract based on the fact that they are mining money. So congratulations to the head of Randgold, now the head of Barrick, who will be the first stock to sell at 1,000 because he's so good.
I think it's good for the mining industry, Jim, because all of a sudden there's a different valuation for miners or explorers.
He's top of the business. I mean, he is the guy, isn't he?
Yes, he is.
He's the boss. He drives the bus. Other people are thinking, why did he do that? Oh, my God, I know why he did that.
Denny, you said it's a different valuation for miners. I would add, with the caveat, it's a different valuation for miners with proven reserves.
Oh, yes, sir. I made that assumption, but there is a differentiation. So
yeah, it has to be resources and reserves, proven and probable.
David,
that's the four characteristics that they have to be as you would go down the line of perfect to modestly acceptable.
David, I've saved this last question of the day, and it is for you, but I do want to get Jim and Bill's perspective as follow-up. But, Dave, I first heard of a possible financial collapse back in 1976. It was the bicentennial. And what I'm going to call the underground or alternative press was beginning to grow. Jimmy Carter was president at the time, and interest rates and inflation were simply out of control. I remember taking out a note at the bank for inventory and receivables, and the interest rates were somewhere near 20%. And what was alternative press at the time was predicting dire consequences for the world. So what happened is we got a new industry. We got long-term storage food. We got water purification. We got defense, backup generators, fuel. Even this head for the hills retreats were the big talk. Now, David, here's where I'm going. We're 40 years downstream from that. And it seems to be that nobody is even talking about or even thinking about these things now, and yet the risk appears to be greater than it ever was with just-in-time business mindset for deliveries and shipping. David, give me your perspective, but we want to try to help the listeners about where we are in this drama.
Ninth inning.
Ninth inning.
Ninth inning. You know, And again, what you have to look at as, have we been in a continuous stage of collapse since the date you're talking about? And if you look at simple things like the middle class is no better off now. They're worse off than they were in the 70s. Denny, my dad was, right. What middle class? Back in the day, a guy went to work and supported the whole family. That doesn't happen now. So, I would agree with it appears that for 40 years it hasn't happened. They have been gutting out the country for 40 years. They got rid of every manufacturing job in the country. You think of the machine shops that used to be in Gary, Indiana, and all these places. They're gone. There is nothing left. There's nothing left but a bunch of credit card debt for people spent at taco stands and movies. They've accomplished it. And this is what the creature from Jekyll Isle said was going to happen. It is the 100-year plan. And right about now, I believe that we are in the final stages or the 9th inning of this game, and you're about to see the reset occur that everybody thought was going to happen in the 70s, and that Jim is telling us that we are now going through. And again, if you look around, I would say the reset is occurring now.
All right, so some simple suggestions.
Take a look at Best Foods, which is a good brand. I think it's called Best Foods, Long Life Food. Okay, they're selling their stuff at 50% off. Now, if I see a company selling their inventory at 50% off, to me that's a person who's given up or is facing bankruptcy.
Because demand has lessened.
I mean,
we can't hear you, Bill.
Worth of food is for sale for $8,000.
Because demand, that's the attitude now. You've got the people who were going to prep have prepped, and there's less people now who believe that it's even possible.
All right, boys, so what's the suggestion to listeners who have done nothing?
Do something.
Yeah.
Do something.
Now.
Golly. Begin, the rest is easy. Really, just start off and shoot for 2 weeks, and then maybe shoot for 2 months. Can you live without your credit card for that long if all hell breaks loose?
How about being in a flood in Texas? What are you going to do? Okay? Let's just take a look at Mother Nature and the hand she's been dealing us. And think of not being prepared for that. Okay, be prepared for that. If you can't handle what we're saying, then be prepared for a change in seasons and extreme weather. So if you don't listen to us, listen to Mother Nature.
David, any more words of wisdom for us?
No, like we said, you can go on for days, weeks, and months about this, but 99% of this is common sense, which has been pretty hard to come by with this world that we live in because we're pretty dumbed down.
Well, and you're steered incorrectly. You're purposely steered wrong. I mean, as a nation, we have been steered wrong.
It's like a psychopath running a nation. He has no conscience. There are no conscience seeds, and he doesn't even know he doesn't have a conscience.
Yes.
Okay?
Bill, you got anything else
that's
you
what
want
we
to
got
add?
now. We have leaders who are pedophiles and psychopaths. Take your choice. Any one of those you want, you can have.
Now, see, I wasn't going to talk about Epstein, and we'll talk about Epstein next week. But I wasn't going to talk about him because I can't.
Dave, what's your quote? Come on.
David?
Yeah.
What's your quote about Epstein?
Deep State, CIA, Mossad, Dynacorp, take your pick.
Cut to the chase. He's dead.
Well,
yeah. I would say he's in trouble.
Yeah,
he knows too much.
I wouldn't want to be dressing up like Epstein and sleeping in his cell. Let's put it that way.
Okay, we're going to talk about him. Let's get this out. That is stuck in everybody's eyes and ears. The man has this enormous wealth, but nobody can figure out how he's got it. Dave, I'm figuring he makes money by blackmail, or he's just set up as a prince by deep state. So it sounds to me like
set up as a prince by the state.
He's a dead man walking.
Yeah, he's set up as a prince by the state. He's a non-official cover.
So what he's been doing is gathering all this blackmail evidence at Whoopi Island,
and the intelligence agencies.
Yeah.
Yeah, his money is very federal.
You know, there was a count
so
made.
So many people looking for him. Can you imagine, from the mob to the enemy of the state? I wouldn't want that.
You better hope he doesn't get bail. But you guys have all seen the counts of the number of CEOs and basically made business people who have resigned their positions, the people in Congress who resigned and did not run again. We see all this, and now all this takes place, and you know, Clinton says he doesn't even remember being with the man, and there's 26 flight logs.
There's nowhere to run to, okay? Not in the information age. You can't run.
I think
Dave
it's
is a smart man. He ran a long time ago. But now you can't run.
Say again.
Will this be the game changer that will sort of wake up everybody? There's predictions that these pedophiles will not be able to walk down the street. Yeah.
They're all non-official cover guys that have earned their money from the government by sacrificing the lives of their so-called friends.
Denny, that's the hope, is that you have all these pedophiles outed, but you have to believe that he's going to be Whitey Bulgered any day.
Well, even if that happens,
it's my
understanding they have the evidence. They have video evidence. They have pictures. They have logs.
They got everything.
So dead or alive, hopefully, I would rather hope that he is singing like a canary, because I think he knows he's a dead man.
Of course he is. Otherwise things would be different for him. But that's the ultimate crime. Anybody bad enough to destroy a child doesn't qualify, in my opinion, to maintain their life.
They will not be able to walk down the street without being attacked.
Destruction of a child?
Oh my God!
I can't conceive of it.
Jim, from a broad perspective, a mass dump of high-level names is enough to trigger the light switch aspect of the reset, because it will completely break confidence all over the world.
Explain what that means.
The Godfather was better than these guys.
Yeah.
All right. But Bill, you got to talk about the light switch effect. Don't speak in that type of analogy.
What I'm talking about is we're watching the reset occur. We're watching piece by piece. We're watching the erosion of confidence piece by piece. But if all of a sudden, in a week's time, you have 1,000, 5,000 huge names from the Pope to the Queen to ex-presidents to you name it, that have abused, satanically abused children, you will see confidence completely break.
Underline satanically, Bill, because there's a great deal of that involved.
Yeah, absolutely. But the point being, the entire system does now and has been running on nothing other than confidence. And if you get huge names that are supposed to be these respected leaders that turn out that they're, satanic pedophiles, you will see confidence completely break. And if confidence completely breaks, forget about, the stock market, they couldn't open it. The important thing is the credit markets, the currency markets. Everything will stop dead in its tracks because there's no buyers.
What do you think the guards are to keep everyone out of the Bilderbergers and the Illuminati meetings and all these kind of strange operations? Why are the guards that let nobody in?
Fellas, I appreciate your perspective and your wisdom. Thanks for sharing it. For those of you listening, we are trying to incorporate your questions. We will not repeat again and again and again the same theme. So if you have other questions, you send them through to Bill. Bill gets them to all of us, and we'll sort of work them in to help you, because if you've got that question, we're convinced other listeners have it. And our job here is each week to give you information that will protect you as much as you can. And with that, Jim, you got anything else you want to add?
Just the honor of being part of this effort.
You're a good one, Jim. How about you, Bill?
I want to mention that this past week I worked on a fairly long article for a periodical called Executive Global. The article is 99% done. What I'm going to do is it will not be run by Executive Global until toward the very end of summer. It's their summer issue, but I'm going to release that to our subscribers. So you'll get it. You'll see the article well before it's actually public.
Thank you, Bill.
I will be traveling the next 2 or 3 days, so I'll post that and won't be able to really respond much to emails until the latter half of the week.
How about you, David? Anything for us?
No, let's see what the week gives us, and throw it all in the pot and make stew out of it.
Well, if I need to know what's in the stew, I come to you to ask.
Yeah, you guys are the best. I don't know how this all came together, but manifest destiny, whatever it is, it sure is a blessing to be with you every Saturday. And thanks for joining. Okay.
Exactly my feeling. Thank you very much.
Have a great week.
Have a great
See you guys.
Bye.